I'm Patrick Watson, I'm an astrologer, and you're watching Big Fat Astrovlog, and today I'm going to be delivering a monthly horoscope for all Sagittarius risings for the month of August 2018. So I'm not talking about Sagittarius suns, I'm talking about Sagittarius risings. So this horoscope only applies to you if you were born when the tropical sign of Sagittarius was rising on the eastern horizon at the time and place of your birth. So if you don't know what your rising sign is, you need your birth date, birth time, very important, and birthplace. Put your data into www.astro.com and you'll be able to find out what sign was rising at the time of your birth. So the way that I know what in general will be happening with Sagittarius risings is because of whole sign houses. The sign's relationship to the ascendant determines what house topics or areas of life each sign pertains to. So as you can see, I have the house topics all written out here in this inner wheel for each sign. And in the middle wheel, I have the positions of the planets for the month of August 2018. And you can see I have the key here for all of the planets. So, you know which glyph corresponds with which planet, and a one-word summary of kind of what each one does. So you can kind of refer to that as I'm talking. And of course, the signs of the Zodiac in the outer rim. So, the first really big thing that happens in August is a solar eclipse on August 11th, 2018. So that's happening in Leo at 18 degrees of Leo. You can see here's the sun glyph, here's the moon glyph, they're together. Normally this would be a new moon, but because they are so close to the north node, the intersecting point, that makes it a solar eclipse. So what this means is this begins a 12-month narrative related to the topics of your 9th house. And so the 9th house is travel, religion, college, politics, culture, philosophy, higher education, the notion of foreign places or people from foreign places, foreign to you. So that's kind of what this eclipse is going to be about for you. Not on the day, but describing this period of time from one eclipse season to the next. And when it comes back around to this part of the Zodiac next year. So, that's what you'll have to expect. I imagine that over the year, maybe you'll make an important trip somewhere you haven't been, somewhere where you feel, slightly out of your element because you're in a foreign place. It may also be a time you pick up a new subject and expand your knowledge and ability in some area, or something of that nature. It could be a new kind of political or philosophical realization for you. We do know that, in general, this eclipse will be somewhat relevant to the Mercury retrograde in Leo that's happening at the same time, because the eclipse is happening so close to Mercury, and also because it's fairly tightly square. It's in a 90-degree aspect to Jupiter in Scorpio. So what's interesting about this is it kind of shows, it sort of depends on your natal chart a little bit. If you have Venus and Jupiter in Leo, then this will be an extremely good eclipse. If you have like Mars and Saturn in Leo, then it might be a kind of more difficult eclipse. But in general, it doesn't look too bad just by itself because of the way it aspects Mercury and Jupiter. So let's take a look. We'll take a little look at Mercury now. On August 1st, Mercury is retrograde. It went retrograde in the end of July. So we're starting off with Mercury retrograde, and we can see it's going backwards through the Zodiac as the month progresses until it finally stations direct on August 19th at 11 Leo. So Mercury retrogrades, the stereotype about Mercury retrogrades is that they are periods of communication mishaps, right? Technology goes awry. There are schedule mix-ups, there's misstatements, there's retractions, there's doing things over and over again, there's hearing back from people you haven't heard from in ages, the resurfacing of old issues and problems you thought you'd gotten rid of, discoveries and insights that you wouldn't normally have gotten or find accidentally, that sort of thing. Mercury is this questioning, curious, trickster planet. So that's one element to kind of expect from Mercury, but we know more specifically that because it's happening in your ninth house of travel and of religion and college and politics and all that kind of stuff, that Mercury going retrograde in your ninth is probably going to have you thinking about more of these kind of higher-minded types of ideas and issues. You may get more embroiled in certain political debates or controversies. Maybe this is a time when you're re-examining your spiritual connection to whatever it is or not. It's based around those kinds of issues. And we also know that this is going to involve that square from Jupiter in the 12th. And I guess the most conventional interpretation of Jupiter in the 12th is experiencing the kindness of strangers, benefiting from strangers and people who you don't know and maybe could be an enemy or maybe not. It's also a transit which shows that you may have to make peace with enemies. You may have to forgive people who don't necessarily have it out for you, or people who have it out for you, people who have beef with you. So something about this notion of forgiveness of strangers or enemies is, challenging you to think more closely or broadly about what your beliefs are, in a sense. So that's what I kind of expect. So while Mercury is going retrograde, there's often a kind of choice or opportunity, potentiality that you kind of go back and forth over in your head. Over the course of the Mercury retrograde period, that's when people tend to kind of have to really weigh the pros and cons of a given course of action. But what I think is going to happen is, while you're thinking about all of that stuff, the eclipse is the thing that kind of makes it happen anyway. Like the things that you're kind of concerned about or wondering about, whether you eventually decide to go one way or another way, the eclipse kind of shows that things are going to be set on a path towards what Mercury is thinking about. So eclipses tend to make things a little more permanent, so there's probably less room for Mercury to have it both ways this time around. So that is the Mercury-Jupiter square and the Mercury retrograde period and the eclipse. Now, let's take a look at the transit of Venus in Virgo and Libra. So at the beginning of the month, Venus is in late Virgo, which is in your 10th house, which is the house of your career and reputation, authority figures, your calling, your public life. So while Venus has been in this house for most of July, it's going to be ending that transit in early August. This has likely coincided with perhaps being more able to gain favor with others, especially people who are situated above you, people who are superior to you or have more authority than you. So a kind of transactional social relationship with your superiors, whatever context that makes sense. Then we get to August 7th, and that's when Venus enters Libra, the sign of and house of your 11th. So the 11th is gifts and awards, organizations, networks, acquaintances. So this is a time to make, this will be the time for the rest of August to make good social connections with people who can kind of help you professionally. So that's, in some ways, that's similar to Venus in the 10th, because that seems to be saying you can make good with your bosses. But this is more specifically about making good with your co-workers or colleagues, I guess I should say, because it has more to do with like friends in high places, friends who can support you in what you do. This might be a good time to ask for a favor. And you may be more willing to do that for others, people you basically consider friends. So that is the transit of Venus through Libra. It is gearing up towards its retrograde station, but that is a different month. So we're staying to August. Let's take a look at Mars now, because Mars is doing some interesting things over August. So at the beginning of August, Mars is retrograde in Aquarius, where it's been for the past few months. And it has been retrograde in your third house, which is the house of siblings and friends, and has these notions of mobility and locality, as well as school or studying. So with Mars in this house, it likely indicates that there perhaps have been some degree of consternation or divisions or bitterness or anger or conflicts with people you consider to be friends, with people who are potentially your siblings, if you have them, or friends of the family. It may also be a time when you may have had to check your road rage a bit. You may have gotten tickets for speeding. Like, that's the sort of thing you expect with Mars in the third. In fact, I think that has actually happened to me with Mars in the third transit through. It was a retrograde Mars transit through my third, and I got ticketed when the moon hit Mars. But so that's kind of what Mars has been doing. But in the month of August, approximately on August 13th, Mars is still retrograde, but it moves back into Capricorn. So there's a bit of a tonal shift with this Mars regress into Capricorn. So it's moving from your third house into your second house. So it's moving from the third house of siblings, friends, and mobility and school to the second house of money and your stuff and what you take for granted. So with Mars going into your second, I mean, that's obviously probably not the best indication for being able to hold onto your money or potentially losing your things, especially since that's a very classic Mercury retrograde thing, is losing your belongings or misplacing things. So obviously that can cost you financially, depending on what you lose or what you break. So with Mars in your second, just make sure you're really careful with your laptop and everything. Don't don't spill coffee on it. That's the sort of thing you kind of expect with Mars going retrograde in your second. And it finally stations direct on August 28th. So that signals the end of the Mars retrograde period and the beginning of Mars kind of moving past the storms and bruises and scars of the retrograde period. The time it was retrograde in Aquarius. So it's sort of resolving whatever that drama has been associated with Mars retrograde in Aquarius for you. And the last thing is, a couple of days before the Mars direct station, there is a full moon at 3 degrees of Pisces, right here. So it's a full moon because it's opposite the sun. Here's the sun, there's the moon. So the moon is throwing light onto the 4th house. And this is the house of home and parents and privacy and private life. You technically have this every year. Full moon in Pisces is either going to take place when the sun is in Virgo in late August or when the sun is in Virgo in September. So if I were you, to kind of get an idea of like how this brings an attention to the topics of parents and home and family and privacy and all that, I would look back in an ephemeris and see, when the sun was in Virgo, when the moon was in Pisces, and you can kind of get a better sense of how that plays out for you in general. Okie doke. That, I believe, is all I have to say about August 2018. I hope you've enjoyed this horoscope. If you liked it, please give it a share, give it a comment, give it a like. And if you're curious to see what I would have to say about your chart, I do offer my services on my website at www.bigfatastro.com. And if you want to do that on a budget, I also sell an automated report called my Big Fat Astro Natal Horoscope Report. So you just put your chart details in, and it gives you back a huge report of my custom-made interpretations of every planet, every sign, and every house and aspect. So that's worth it. And of course, I am also on Patreon, and if you want to keep seeing cool content, please become a supporter. Even if it's just $1, I really appreciate it. Thank you. And I hope you have a good August. And I would like to hear what happens to you and see how, these transits play out for you as a Sagittarius rising. So, good luck, and I'll see you next time.